I'm Beth Gray, MBIT Coach. Welcome to my live series on mBraining. So today I'm interviewing Wendy Bruce, who is also an MBIT Coach, and she does leadership development for managers. I hope you enjoy this interview. So
Correct.
Wendy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your background. So go right ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so I spent a number of years as a frontline manager. Got thrown in at the deep end. I was good at my job, so they thought I could help other people be good at theirs, and it wasn't true. Because if
Peter
they
Principle.
if they had been as motivated and productive as I was, they wouldn't have needed a manager. So, as the years went by, I then moved over into human resources. And so I spent a lot of time working with managers and employees who just didn't see things the same way. And
Yeah.
so I would help managers come up with strategies to help their employees. I would help the employees come up with strategies to better anticipate what their manager needed, and with limited response until about 5 years ago. I learned how to become a coach, and I got certified in coactive coaching, which is a 200-hour program. And right as I was getting that certification, my mentor coach said, "You know what? Have you heard about this thing called MBIT?" And I said, "Huh? What?" And to begin with, I thought, eh, head, heart, gut, I don't know. I don't think that's going to work in my market. I mean, I'm dealing with engineers and product managers in a tech environment, and I thought it was a little too touchy-feely.
Woo woo.
Woo-woo,
Yes.
yeah. Her clientele was exclusively court administrators, judges, senior court officials, and she said they absolutely loved it. And I went, "Oh, okay." And although we only have one or two trainings in the UK every year, it just happened to be literally on my doorstep within a couple of weeks. And so I did it. And so
Yeah.
that was
Absolutely.
2017.
Wonderful.
Been doing MBIT ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it, is like we do see it as being, like touchy feely because we're in the heart. We're talking about feelings and desires and what you want. And my experience in the corporate world is that we are very, very much heads on stick, coming down into the gut for action.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might be, we're really good at planning and ideating anything. And then we come down into that and we take over and we move forward. We might even hunger for it. We're ravenous for that ambitious success.
Yeah.
Okay. And we push until we get exactly, what it was that we were hungry for. But that also leads us then to missing out on the beauty of relationships and building relationships that are compassionate as opposed to just based on manipulation or fulfilling my needs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's so much for me of coming to mBraining and going, wait a minute, I don't know how to do that. I've never actually done that before for myself or for others.
Right. Yeah, I know working in tech, so many of the executive leaders were passionate visionaries, but they didn't
Yeah.
necessarily connect with people. They connected with a broader vision. So it's very head-based,
Right.
though they were passionate about it. And yet when it
Yeah.
came time to fundraising, they were totally gut-based. And it was like I had to go out
Right.
there, they had to convince venture capitalists to give them lots of money. And very little time was spent in the heart and developing those relationships and truly connecting with whether or not their success was meaningful to them, because they measured their
Right.
success in dollar volume. So then
Yeah,
when I,
we set smart goals. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, it's set by a time. But
yeah,
does it actually reflect what's
yeah,
really important to me?
One of the first people that I worked with when I got into tech he was in charge of engineering for his group. And this was a product that was new to the market. So they were pioneers in this product. And he was just unhappy. And it turned out that the reason he was unhappy was because he couldn't connect with the audience, the people who were going to be buying the product because it wasn't made yet. There were no users yet. And that was
Yeah.
nearly 10 years ago. And he moved over to
Right.
work in medical, not medical science, but medical data. And he's been there ever since because he's able
Mm-hmm.
to connect with the impact he's making in people's lives. He was quite heart-based. So although he was brilliant at what
Wow.
he did, the organization
Yeah.
around him was out of context for him. Didn't make
Right.
him
Exactly.
less valuable, just meant that he was in the wrong situation. So yeah, he found
Right.
what he was looking
And so
for.
one of the things, yeah, one of the things that I love about mBraining is that, first you work on that inner alignment and then you work on the outer alignment. So first, do I know my own values? Do I know my own purpose and my desires? What do I want? Um, and then, are my needs also being met? Because it's not just what do I want, but, is it also, first we go to the heart, but then we do come up to the head. We brainstorm, we come down to the gut, and we make sure that it's safe and that my needs are met. And we find that inner alignment, but then we move into outer alignment, in our relationships. What do other people want and need? What do they think? And are their needs being met by this? And it completely changes the perspective in leadership as well as in networking, and even in families. It doesn't matter which context we take it to.
Right.
It gives us that ability to truly connect with other people, but also to make sure that we're listening to all parts of the equation and not giving more importance to desires, for example, over rational thinking, not giving more credence to rational thinking than we are to boundaries and risk. That all of it is aligned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so mBraining is a wonderful way to do that.
So when we go to decision making and managers of teams, how does mBraining work for you in that context?
So I work with the manager themselves to better understand themselves. As you were just talking about, what's important to them, what are their core values, what's their personal mission in life, what's their personal vision for their career. We have a tendency to be told by our employers, oh, these are the core values and this is the mission and vision. And so you adopt them or you're just out of alignment. So having people
Right.
find what's true for them helps them become more empathetic to the people on their team because they have a
Right.
tendency historically to say, I told you what to do. So I always call it, I went from telling to selling to yelling, and I still didn't get what I wanted. And and it's true. I would tell people what to do. I knew they knew what to do. I would then sell. I would say, hey, free lunch for the person who does this first or whatever. So I would try selling, giving bonuses, whatever.
Exactly. I'm gonna find that motivating factor. What works for this person. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, it devolved into yelling. So once I learned about mBraining, I now help managers focus on themselves. And I haven't found one in 5 years who's even
Yeah.
resisted doing the homework. And then I say, what if you
Yeah.
knew that about the people on your team? Because
Yeah.
a manager might be motivated by beating every deadline and getting stuff done early, and they might have somebody who's
Yeah.
a perfectionist working for them who can always find something else to tweak, and so they never deliver until 1 minute
And it's
before.
never quite finished. Yeah. It's not quite good enough. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so they're both honoring their personal values, But by seeing it from the other person's perspective, then they can have a conversation about how do we align these together? Because one telling the
Yeah.
other what to do, if it's me on the other end, I get stubborn and I just do worse.
Exactly. I dig my heels in and you ain't moving me. And the more you push me, the more I resist. Yes.
Right. So by having them just join together on sharing each other's vision, each other's
Yeah.
values, it creates a better understanding. So then if the manager isn't getting the volume or the timeliness or whatever that they need from that employee, if they know that that employee values respect on their team, then the manager can work with them and say, hey, here's a wonderful way to increase respect. If you start delivering 5 minutes early
Yes.
this week and then 10 minutes early next week, so that those who know less than you can come to you for guidance. Whoa, their respect level goes way up. That then is satisfying. So it's
Right.
a matter of helping
Yeah.
them speak the same language, even though it may all be English or French or whatever, but it's
Right.
seeing where the other one's coming from. So I found that
Exactly.
mBraining is wonderful tool for that because
Yeah.
I encourage them to ask questions, not what does your heart think or what does your gut think, but what are you
Yeah.
longing for? You know?
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
so what does your
How can we
intuition
better
say?
connect with this project? I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many ways of, of talking from the heart without mentioning the heart.
yeah.
Connection is something we do from the heart. You know, um, and it's not that there isn't a meeting of the minds,
Hmm.
but too often in business we focus on the meeting of the minds and we forget that it's a whole person in front of us.
Right. Yeah.
and and much like you said, speaking from a different place, somebody is heart based and the other one is head based, they're going to seem to be speaking at odds because somebody's talking I feel while the other one is saying but I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And people who aren't similar to each other will have discrepancies in how they communicate with each other. I know I've worked with
Absolutely.
some brilliant engineers who just didn't like teamwork, as in, let's all get coffee together in the morning and let's go out fun. They were just like, um, I
Uh-uh.
would put my head down, be focused, put my earphones on, don't interrupt me, don't invite me to meetings, and they'll put out the most brilliant work. And everybody on their team says,
Absolutely.
oh, they're so standoffish, they're so unapproachable, I can't work with them.
And yet they're getting the end result is there to see.
They're getting
Yeah.
more work, more brilliant work accomplished than the rest of the team combined. And
Yeah.
so,
And I know for me, there was so many days where in the car driving to work, my brain was already working on the project,
mhm,
whatever I had there. And I would walk into work already full on mentally in the day.
mhm,
And I would literally walk past people, not even seeing them
right.
because I already had, the time I was in the car, my brain was already working on it, and I was already on my way to the computer to sit down and actually do what needed to be done. Okay,
Mhm,
how rude! She doesn't stop and say good morning. She doesn't even see you.
yep. Yeah. And really all it is a different alignment.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, in the case of the engineer I was just talking about, when I sat down and said, what's important to you? He was like, why would you ask me that? It's because I want to know where you're coming from. Nobody's ever asked me that. I've been doing this for years.
exactly. Yeah,
And guess what? I would be the one person he would smile, nod to, pour my coffee for me, whatever, if he happened to be standing next to me, because I actually sought to seek alignment with him and to see what was important to
right.
him. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind
and
of
and 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 from that leadership perspective, what I had to learn to do was to make myself a text message or a voice message as I was arriving to the office with whatever that to-do list was that I had in my mind. And when I arrived at the office, from the very first person I met all the way to my desk, to actually stop and recognize and connect with people. And what I learned to do, because it was actually so much more effective, was I would stop with each person, especially people that I knew that might need something from me, and start the day off with, what do you need from me before I get to my desk? What do you need? Okay. Knowing that when I got to my desk, I could shower for 3 hours and ignore absolutely everybody because I'd already taken care of all of the questions. Nobody was waiting for me to ask a question because they needed me to help on the next step of whatever they were working on.
Right.
But I had to learn a different way of showing up every morning. And that did not come natural to me. That was not my natural way of working. I was used to being a loner that just got in and got stuff done. And then you move into management. And like you said, no one trained you for it.
Nope.
You're put in charge of people with all kinds of different personalities and different expectations and different background. And no matter how much leadership training you've done, it still doesn't prepare you for the job of actually managing people and meeting them where they're at, not where you're at.
Correct. Yeah. I always employ the platinum rule rather than the golden rule. Treat your employees the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. And people just go,
Exactly. Yeah. And the way I want to be treated, the way I want it to be treated was just leave me alone. So I assumed that everybody else just wanted to be left alone. Let me get on with the job. That's not what other people needed.
no, one place where I worked, which was also an open plan office, I got everybody a little stand thing for their, like a spike on a base, and they had paper flags. They had red and green. So red meant keep walking, don't talk to me. Green meant I'm open.
Yeah, don't stop and talk. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And both of them would mean ask first. And people would just like, oh, what? It just made such a difference because there are some people who are very social and they just think everybody wants to know what they did yesterday evening. We don't want to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if we think about, the last years, 3 years, and all the changes that have happened in business with remote working, with people now coming back to the office, how's mBraining helping with that transition in management and with managees?
I think it's come in really handy with managers being concerned that someone who's working remotely isn't working if they can't see them. Because
Right.
a lot of people, particularly
Right.
if the work is intellectually based as opposed to production based, you can't measure the widgets they made. You don't know how many hours they put in. You only know what they turn in on deadlines. Well, those deadlines might be a week away or 3 months away. And so what I found
Absolutely.
is I could help managers tune into their gut and say, what's your gut telling you?
Right.
Well, my gut says this
Exactly.
one is totally on deck, but this one may have something else going on. So let's talk about that one. What are the signs? And then what do you
Yeah.
want to say to them? And so I can bring them
Yeah.
back into coherence by looking at
Yeah.
that one. And then I might do a comparison and say, so the one that you feel is absolutely doing everything right, what do they look like? Do they show up on time for meetings? Do they deliver stuff? Great. So then you make those standards for other people rather than watching people or making them sign up for these apps where it shows everybody working at their desk in little video clips. And it's like, oh my goodness, don't do that to me, please.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But some people love them. But yeah, so I think that's probably been one of the most productive ways I've been able to use mBraining is in helping not establish, but reinforce the trust in their relationship so
Right.
that the employee or the manager does not feel being watched or supervised or minutes of
Mhm.
productivity. Oh, I was reading stuff last week about, I forget which company's doing productivity minutes.
Google and Facebook and blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, even those ones are saying, well, our employees aren't working. Well, sure about it. And also, were they even working when we had them in the office?
I have some of my best solutions when I'm in the shower. So how on earth will an app
Of
tell them that I
course.
was working when I was in the shower? Because I think we don't all work on the clock. We may be present
Right.
on the clock, but our head is always thinking of those solutions and we're always looking for new
Yeah.
information. Or we might be reading a book that
Yeah.
provides us with a hint to how to solve a problem. So yeah, I'm not a fan of those apps yet. Maybe I'll change. I
Yeah.
don't. Not now.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, even running a law firm, I from basically 2007 allowed my employees, even lawyers, to choose their hours.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't care what your hours are. I just need to have you choose your hours because you've got to be able to tell the client when you're going to be available.
Yeah.
You've got to have some semblance of normality for the client. So I had a lot of employees that chose to work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. straight through with just 15-minute breaks as opposed to an hour off for lunch, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they would literally come in at 6, and by 2 o'clock, they were out of the office and they had the whole afternoons to themselves. It meant they missed the morning traffic and they missed the afternoon traffic. So commute was 15 to 20 minutes, not 90 minutes.
Hmm.
But it also meant for a lot of them that they had the office to themselves for 2 to 3 hours. And if they had to get documents ready for a public office or presentation or whatever, they had 2 or 3 hours in the morning to get everything ready before government offices or whatever opened, and then they could be at that door at 8 o'clock on the dot or at 9 o'clock on the dot when the doors opened,
Hmm.
already with everything ready. And I don't care what hours you work. All I care is, did we get the results? Is the client happy?
Right.
However you might make that happen.
Right.
But I also had, there's always some staff that were like, they never work overtime. And I was like, but they don't need to.
Hmm.
Why would anyone work overtime?
Hmm.
No one should be staying.
Right.
But the ones that stayed late typically were the socializing ones.
Mhm. In tech, it was
And the
background.
antisocial ones, you've probably seen a lot. The antisocial ones never stayed and did overtime. They
Right.
always left exactly on the dot because they were done.
Hmm. Because they were structured and they were
Um,
responsible and
but
they
you
delivered.
learn a little.
Hmm. Oh yeah, we used to
Yeah,
have a thing with our
exactly.
engineers. We
But
wrote.
it was being able.
Say again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having the
So
metrics to measure what what is productivity.
right. And so
And
not
I mean,
only.
I had one employee that would come in at 6 and leave at 1 rather
Mhm,
than 2 or 3. And everyone's
mhm,
like, they don't even work the 8 hours. And I was like, and you say that like I care.
yeah,
The work is done.
mhm,
And then there's the Saturdays where they worked all day because there was something urgent,
right.
but that was them. That was how, okay, I've got to get this done. So I get it done. And they didn't come to me saying, you owe me overtime. No, I have a job to do. I get commissions when everything goes really well.
Mhm,
Everything gets done. Client's happy.
yep.
Yeah. So, what is your vision? I know you've got right now, you've got a manager training that you've already got up and out. Tell me a little bit about what that involves.
So The way that I rolled that out initially is it's a one person at a time program. There are 10 modules that they can do online. And then there's, I call them action plans. Some people might call them homework. There's things for them to do, watch other videos, read articles, to reinforce the learning, to help them see it's not just my opinion, but it's a broader concept. They start the program with an online self-evaluation of their manager skills, and they end the program by
Right.
redoing that so that they can see how much they've learned in the meantime. So
Yeah.
we use those as our metrics because just starting out, you can't really measure the difference over 3 months or 6 months. It's
No.
something that happens
No.
exponentially. So what I'm just
Right.
now rolling is actually at turning this into an opportunity for peer learning so that a group of
Okay.
12 managers from different companies take the program at the
Hmm.
same time. We meet as a
Hmm.
group to discuss the content so there can be healthy debate or
Hmm.
what about this situation or that. So it's not just one way information. And then they have
Right.
individual coaching sessions with me in between. And so
Right.
that
Okay.
way I'm hoping to build peer support groups so that they can take those and manage them themselves and just know that they're not
Absolutely.
alone with what they're struggling with.
Exactly, because it is lonely at the top. I mean, that's one of the things that, one of the best things I ever did when I was running the law firm was that I reached out to other lawyers that were running their own firms that were more or less the same size and built a network of those people. And how do you do this? How do I do this better? You know, and one of the best tips I got was from this. He was probably about 20 years older than me, and he was a managing partner. He said, "You have to have one day a week where you have no appointments with staff or with clients, where you can just sit down and get the work done. And it is sacred. There's no emergency big enough that can make it onto your schedule that day.
Right.
And one day a week, you literally do all the work for the entire week. And the
Mhm.
rest of the week, you make sure that everybody else gets their work done. So you're
Right.
spending 4 days a week making sure that everybody else is doing their job, but you get one day a week where you just focus on your clients and your work.
Mhm.
You're not sitting trying to juggle it between everybody else's needs. Cannot tell you how much I appreciated that advice.
It's powerful. I mean, I was certainly one of those people who would come in 2 hours early because 5 days a week, if I came in 2 hours before anybody else, I had 10 hours a week with undivided. I didn't have to
Exactly.
wait in line for the photocopier. It was like nobody distracting me. So by the time my team came in, I knew what they had done,
Yeah,
what they hadn't done. I'd answered all my emails. I'd planned for the meetings that were going to come that
exactly.
day.
Yeah,
And then I would greet them and have coffee
yeah,
with them. And I would be so relaxed because I wasn't coming in as you were with my head spinning, going, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to. So whether it's one day a week
exactly.
or whether
Yeah,
it's hours in the day, absolutely
yeah,
invaluable.
yeah. And that's something you get from that peer group of how do you handle this?
Yes.
How are you getting this done? And you don't get, I mean, yes, I could have, I mean, like I had a mentor. He wasn't living the situation I was living. He was from a different background, a different industry, and he was absolutely fabulous for how do you run a business, but not
Mhm.
for how do you run a law firm.
Mhm.
you know Whereas talking to other managing partners of other law firms was able to say, okay, well, how do you do this? How do you get
Yes.
this done?
Yeah. Yeah. So
um,
that's where I'm
and
taking.
and you need that. You need people that exactly. Now you've also have an idea for working between managers and managees.
I
Are you
do.
ready to talk about that or not quite yet?
Sure. It's a concept, but I'll outline it for you. So, my dream is that managers will participate in that peer learning, that they'll learn more and be able to discuss what they're learning, so that as they finish the program, I can then coach them in leading their teams through very similar material. So that if they work with the team 1 hour a week and say, okay, now we're working on mission, vision, purpose, and values. Now we're working on motivation. Now we're working on mindset. They're all on the same page, even though they're all invited to have a different perspective on it, in the hopes that
Right.
they then will be more empathetic towards their manager, not just the manager being more empathetic towards them, but that they all see each other as different, and everybody brings value to the workplace, just not in the same ways. So, yes, I'm looking
Exactly.
forward
And also
to.
then they'll learn the language. And
Correct.
and when the manager is talking about, yes, but does this align with our values? Well, they've already had the conversation about values with that manager.
Right, right. And so, yes, I'm hoping
You
then
know,
that managees will be prepped in case they want to become managers at some point. I'm hoping that they'll also see that their
absolutely.
managers are managees from those above them, that they're actually sandwiched in the
Right.
middle. Because it's very easy for someone to
Yeah.
say, my manager doesn't appreciate me. And the manager says, what can I do? The company doesn't have the budget. They get stuck in the middle.
Right.
I'm hoping to increase
Exactly.
mutual empathy amongst
Yeah.
peers and in different levels within an organization.
Fantastic. So, closing up, let's come back to mBraining. How much of your program, I mean, it's really hard because I work with mBraining in everything I do, and yet most of the time, I never actually mention
Mhm.
it.
Right. I'm the same.
um, exactly. And so, when I look at something like, writing a program, I'm not talking about head, heart, and gut, but I probably cover every part of head, heart, and gut.
Hmm.
Um, in what I'm doing, just using different language.
Right.
I imagine for you that's quite the same.
Yes, it's completely integrated. And it's actually kind of funny now, after clients work with me for a little while, they'll come back and say, well, my heart was telling me this, and my head was saying this. And I will crack up because maybe 3 months before they were like, what are you talking about? I also tell
Exactly.
them that the principles of mBraining work so well in raising teenagers that they go home and practice on their kids.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then they go, oh my God, that worked. Then they try it at work. It's like, ah, I always put that
Yeah.
out there because I've had so many come back and tell me that.
Well, I mean, and I had a fantastic conversation recently with Chloe Aldham. We were talking about children raising kids, and one
Hmm.
of the things that, before the age of 7, children don't have parts. Everything is in the present moment, and there is no past, present, future. Um, but suddenly at about 7, part of me wants this, and the other part says that I shouldn't, or I don't want it.
Hmm.
And suddenly there's all these big emotions coming up because of the internal chaos of no longer being in full alignment like they were, last week.
Right.
As and it is, we get these big emotions, but when we take that into organizations, and every person has within them that lack of internal alignment, of not necessarily having head, heart, and gut. My heart wants, but my head thinks. Um, and not even to say what my gut's saying. That gut instinct that says absolutely not, dragging my heels. We're not doing this.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't even put it into words. I can't even tell you why. It's just no. And of course, in the rational world that we live in, especially in business, we want an explanation. You
Hmm.
need to explain this to me.
Or at least our venture capitalists expect us to explain it. Right.
Exactly. Okay. And so, as we're able then to recognize that even each person individually has this, and then as a team, we've got this. And then as an organization and a hierarchy, we've also got this. It opens up the possibility of much better communication. Just, finishing up, where can people find you? That was really the last little bit of,
Great.
how do people get in touch with you if they want to know about your program and your training?
Super, thank you. So wendybrucecoaching.com is my website. Made it very complicated.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
and you can
Yep.
message me through there, reach me through there, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone who's interested in what I do.
Okay, perfect. So I will put a link in the comments, wendybrucecoaching.com. You're also on LinkedIn, right?
I am, yes.
Okay, so I'll also put a link over to LinkedIn. So thank you so much, Wendy, for joining
Thank
me
you.
today and
Always
to
fun
talk
talking
about,
with you.
how we're using MBIT management. I hope you've enjoyed today's interview with Wendy Bruce talking about management and leadership. If you want more information, please see the links below, and please like and subscribe to my channel.